My name is Deneen Diamond. I'm the Center of Excellence Lead for Health. Really excited about the session today, and we are offering three beautiful young researchers to speak to the students in New Brunswick. So hopefully, if you have some students there, that's great. If you don't, this will be recorded, and you can certainly use it for the future. And I want to say thank you right away to our presenters. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, and then they are going to jump right in, and I don't want to steal their thunder. So we'll get started right away. So first we have Irina Savianova. After completing her undergraduate degree in biomedical science, Irina pursued a master's in the Department of Human Health and Nutritional Sciences at the University of Guelph with Dr. Jeremy Simpson, where she is currently working as a researcher. Ashley Eddy is a six-year PhD candidate in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie Medicine, New Brunswick, with a research focus on understanding the underlying mechanics of heart failure and drug development. Kyle Wells is a first-year MSc student in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie Medicine, New Brunswick. His research focus is on understanding the tissue and cellular conditions of heart failure and using that knowledge to develop new therapies. So right away, I am going to hand it over to our panel, and they are going to take it from here.
Hi, everyone. So I'll introduce things to you today. Unfortunately, I can't see any of you, but I can imagine you're all a very bright and handsome looking audience. And so that's what I'm picturing today. Ashley, Kyle, and I are here today to kind of make research a less exclusive and intimidating thing. So I'll start off by talking about how we all know each other. So we are all a part of IMPART, which is an interdisciplinary research team that's housed at Dalhousie Medicine, New Brunswick. And so although our base is in New Brunswick, we collaborate with physicians, clinicians, researchers, and professors in universities all across Canada. And so today, Ashley and Kyle are going to speak to you a bit about research in the East Coast. I am based in the Greater Toronto area, so I go to the University of Guelph, so I can also speak to some research, outside of the East Coast. And ultimately, we're just here to tell you about ourselves and then to answer any of your questions and see what we can do for you here today. So maybe I'll pass over the floor to Kyle, and he can tell us a little bit about his research experience.
Hi, everyone. It's a tremendous honor to get a chance to speak to you all today. A little bit about what I get to do each and every day at DMMB. It's funny. I can remember being a high school student, and for me, that was only 6 years ago now. So I can relate quite a bit to where all of you that might be getting a chance to watch this or watch it later are sort of at now. I often think back and remember where I was in those days and often asking myself, what was I going to do in the future and how was I going to get there? And was I making the right choices to get there? And, ultimately, I'm so glad that I had really phenomenal mentors in high school, people like Mrs. Natalie Miller and Miss Melanie Ball at Tantramar, who were phenomenal biology teachers who mentored me so much and taught me those basic concepts, things like protein synthesis and about DNA and RNA and the Krebs cycle, the dreaded old Krebs cycle, and how those things have been so central to what I do today. And I remember grudging them in the past, but now I'm so thankful for having learned those things and getting to do them. And so I guess my path into research is pretty traditional. I did an undergraduate education at Acadia, got an honors degree in biology with a minor in chemistry, took a lot of really interesting courses in my first 2 years, animal biology, cell biology, plant biology, microbiology, things that were sort of very abstract pieces. And in third year, at the end of my third year, I was introduced by my first year lab instructor to a researcher in the biology department at Acadia, Dr. Glenys Gibson, who changed my life forever. She introduced me to histology, which is sort of the study of the tissue structure and cells at a micro level, so sort of underneath a microscope. And that was sort of how I got my start into research. It was very serendipitously. I never really went into university thinking that I would become a researcher. I always intended to become a physician, and to some degree I still am working towards that goal. But I happened to come upon discovering research, and that I had a passion for doing that. And so it's been an exciting journey. I graduated in 2020 in the midst of the world going to shambles, and was trying to decide what I wanted to do next. I hadn't got into med school as I had hoped right out of my undergrad. And so sort of at Glenys's suggestion, she asked me if I had ever considered going on to do a master's or further research. And I really hadn't up until that point. But, you know, after I didn't get into medicine and needed something to do, I sort of realized that I really did like research, and getting my feet into it during my undergrad gave me a really good taste for what research entails. And so I was, you know, so I really started to consider it, and eventually started reaching out to people at Dalhousie in the Faculty of Medicine, at Glenys's suggestion that there's many ways to study medicine when you're not actually in medicine, the undergraduate medicine program, that is. And yeah, eventually got introduced to Dr. Keith Brunt here, who was Ashley and I's phenomenal supervisor, and got involved in lots of heart failure research and have ran with it from there.
Okay, Kyle, I think that was such a heartfelt story. I didn't even know half of that, so I'm glad that I'm learning more about you today too. Ashley, do you want to kind of tell us about your research?
Sure. So hi everyone, my name is Ashley Eady. I'm a biomedical scientist and a PhD student in the Brunt Lab at Dalhousie Medicine, New Brunswick. I'm in the Department of Pharmacology, which studies all things drugs related within Dalhousie University's medical school in St. John, shorthanded as DMNB. But my research focuses on working at the molecular mechanisms that underlie how the heart has an ability to adapt to stress in different disease conditions, and how to build better drugs to hijack these mechanisms and actually improve outcomes for the patients with cardiovascular disease, including patients in St. John, using strategies like nanomedicine. So I've been in research for about 8 years now. I started in the 4th year of my undergrad degree, which is rather late, before going on to do my master's in science and my PhD. But I really stumbled my way into finding research. I knew that going into my undergraduate degree, I really enjoyed medicine, and everybody that enjoyed medicine always moved away out of New Brunswick or went straight into applying to med schools outside of the province. But when I was just finishing up my undergrad, DMNB was built, and that suddenly became another option. But when I was first looking into it, I sort of stumbled my way into finding it in undergrad, in that I don't have any family that ever completed an undergrad in my immediate vicinity, let alone science. At the time, there weren't any resources like what we're doing here today, or IMPART, or the Atlantic Student Research Journal, that sort of reaches out to find people that are interested in health research. And I had no idea really that there were scientists in New Brunswick, let alone world-class scientists in our province, and that you could actually train to be one here. You wouldn't have to go outside of the province necessarily. and come back. But that's sort of why I'm here, to hopefully make it less of a struggle for students that are coming out of high school, having to stumble less than we did, and answer any questions you might have to help.
All right, so to kind of round this off, I can tell you guys a little bit about myself as well. What I think is great is that between the three of us, we kind of have, research in undergraduate degrees, master's, PhD, and in the workforce kind of covered. So I think if you really have any sorts of questions, we can really be here to answer any of those. So I think I've been in research for about 6-ish years, and I say research lightly because my research started in my second year of my undergraduate degree, and I was a volunteer changing cages. So we have some of our animal models, and so my research was really at that point very much more supportive than investigative. I wasn't in the front line doing all the cool stuff, but I think from that point, just getting involved really helped me make decisions from there on out. So it doesn't have to be this perfect process where, you're doing cancer research and curing death. It just has to be you getting involved from the first step. And I think that I got really lucky because I found a lab that was really supportive and had some amazing people. And most of all, I think what I've learned from research is how important that community is. And more than finding the perfect research project is finding a community that works well for you. I think that a lot of people see researchers and research as this very isolated process, sitting by yourself, with a pipette or something. But it's actually incredibly collaborative. And although I live in Ontario and go to the University of Guelph, we do a lot of collaboration with Dr. Brunt's lab, so with Ashton and Kyle. And so you really get a chance to work with people all over the world. So I did my undergraduate in biomedical sciences, and then I went on to do my master's at Guelph in human health and nutritional sciences. And that's just a fancy name for our department, but we do a lot of physiology research on our floor. And so a lot of the things that my lab looks like is cardiac pathophysiology, which means better understanding how the heart works normally, how it works under disease, and how we can improve treatment for conditions like heart attacks and heart disease and things like that. My research specifically, I'm looking at this protein called erythropoietin. If you ever heard of Lance Armstrong and that whole doping scandal with the Tour de France, that's EPO. That's what I'm looking at. And we're looking at all sorts of cool stuff with EPO within the lab. Some people within my lab are also doing, some surgical models. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, I can tell you what I know from that aspect. And I finished my master's last year and have continued to work within research for the past year. So that's currently where I am now. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about myself. We can open the floor to some questions, I think, as some are coming on. If not, we can, continue chatting. I think one thing you'll find out is people in research, always grab on to a human that they can talk to, and we can talk for hours. But we'll open the floor for a little bit to see if you guys have any questions.
I just wanted to add that comment that Ashley made about not knowing about the fact that there was world-class research within this province resonated tremendously with me. I left and went to Nova Scotia. I went to Acadia for my undergrad, and I didn't know until I got involved with Dr. Brunt's lab that this type of research at this incredible level was even going on here.
If you look at the IMPART website, which is just impart.team, and you look at some of our team members, you can see all the researchers we have, a lot of which are from New Brunswick. And so I think you'll just be amazed by how many really cool scientists we have and the kind of projects that you guys can work on, just by reaching out. Okay, so how do we manage questions? Because I know not everyone has access to the computer, so I'm assuming maybe we'll get some questions typed on in the chat. Is that correct?
The chat here, and if anybody wants to put their hand up, they certainly can put their hand up. I know that the timing of the presentation is difficult for some students, so I did want to just mention that. I do see some teachers on. If you have any questions maybe that you think your students would want to hear the answers to, certainly put your hand up and we can answer those. And if not, we've prepared some questions ahead of time, just in case there weren't any that came to the floor. So I see a beautiful hand up from Michelle. Welcome.
Hi, so I'm Michelle Standring. I'm from Rothsay, New Brunswick, and I'm a teacher here, biology and AP research. So right now I have a group of students who are looking to do research on the ground here with air quality in our schools and making Corsi Renthal boxes and like testing that and how applicable that can be on wide scale. So although I have, which is awesome, just great, it's just amazing. But I was just wondering, like that's what they're doing now, and I can't dictate what future AP research needs will be. But you mentioned this IMPART website. Is that like updated periodically? Is that someplace I could go to reach out for if, let's say, next year somebody wants to do something with the heart or a specific protein or, blah, blah, whatever it is?
It is basically updated on an ongoing basis. So the members there are current active members that are doing research. We also host this thing called Research Reels on a monthly basis, and we have a tab on the website as well. And for Research Reels, we have usually a clinician scientist or a professor researcher host a little 20-minute seminar on their research every month. And so they also leave their Twitter and their email within these seminars. So you can actually, watch someone's research, see if you like it first, and then directly reach out to that person and see if maybe they have some openings as well. And if you don't get a chance to attend some of these seminars, and you can sign up on our website as well, we do post them on our YouTube channel. So you can see the past seminars that we have. I think we've had maybe 7, 8 currently already. And with all of those, you'll see their emails and their contact information. And so within IMPART, itself, there's so many opportunities and so many investigators that you can look into and reach out whenever.
And is that IMPART just .ca, IMPART?
IMPART.team.
.team.
You'll see our website's little logo is like a little flame with a dot in the middle. So you'll know you're in the right spot.
That's good.
I just put it right in the chat there, Michelle.
Oh, perfect. Fabulous. Wonderful. That's great.
And many of us, Michelle, probably also have colleagues that, we can reach out to as well. Many of us have extensive, we know people who knows a person who knows a person, sort of thing. So, always happy to, reach out. And even if we can't per se do it, we can probably find somebody who can do it.
Well, that's wonderful, because we are just starting the AP research program here at my school. I don't know what's happening with the other people online, but I'm passionate about it. And the more we can get those ties and those connections made, so that way we can access, some good mentors to help with that process, that would be wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear that they're getting an AP program going up and going. When I went through high school, it wasn't offered at Tenterville. And, I had to, we did have this cool program where you could go to Mount A and take a course at Mount A, which is what I did. So my first bio credit was from Mount A, but none of those other courses were offered. So, it was a struggle sometimes to get bio 112. So
Michelle, I will add that you can certainly reach out to the Center of Excellence. Earlier this year, a teacher that was teaching AP in the province reached out, and I connected her to the New Brunswick Health Research Foundation. And within the afternoon, they had 3 mentors working with the students. So certainly that's really the purpose of the center, is to try and, bring the experts to the teachers and the teachers to the experts with less steps, because we know how busy you are. So that's part of it.
And I find it's not even the steps, it's the access. It's like, because if I make the cold call to the university, and I have, sometimes it's very difficult to get through those doors on a cold call. But having these back doors, like you say, and having all the networking that's done through, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, and they do this and that, and they can vouch for you, it makes it a lot easier.
Yes.
Perfect.
I will say, for those interested, when I actually started my master's, I was a little late to getting involved with this community, but the science Twitter community is actually really active all the time. And it's a weird thing to say. I don't know if Twitter is even that cool amongst, the high school students nowadays. But if you are interested in science and you are interested in research, I would say make an account and follow some of the researchers that you're interested in, both in New Brunswick and, all around the world. And you'd be surprised, people tweet each other all the time. There's constantly things being shared. You see, these people who seem so exclusive and, the university, you see them being real people and talking about science all the time, and you can message them, you can tweet them, and that may be intimidating at first, but being like joining Twitter myself and getting involved with the science community, you really see how accessible it is, and that that intimidation kind of disappears. And so Twitter, surprisingly, is a great way to get in contact with people in science.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's one of those great back doors into it. Sometimes scientists are just so busy that the emails that we get, I mean, I know that teachers do too. My uncle's a teacher, and I know teachers get a lot of emails too, but sometimes we just get so bombarded with emails that they just get down the line. But sometimes if you can catch somebody on Twitter and catch their attention, great way to get them motivated to get back to you.
I know also I manage IMPART's Twitter account, and so if you ever tweet IMPART, I will gladly facilitate that communication and retweet or tag one of our supervisors or researchers and get you guys in contact. So Twitter is definitely an option.
All right. Questions? And if not, then we certainly can move on to some of the questions that we've prepared. I think we should just go ahead.
I can ask the first question to Ashley, Kyle, whoever. I think that the first thing that really comes to mind when talking about this is, where do you start? So if you're starting undergraduate degree at a university or a new university, how do you get involved with research? And that's kind of a question I face myself. Like, I want to be involved with research. Now what?
Yeah. That was certainly a struggle for me. Even during my undergrad, like watching professors give their seminars, you had no idea really that they did research because it wasn't sort of featured there. How I find my undergraduate supervisor, my honor supervisor, he was talking about a chapter in the course and just introduced his student research assistant, and that's how I figured out that he actually did research. And I went to Google Scholar and I read a bunch of his papers that I could at least sort of understand what was going on in his lab, and I thought that was really cool. And so then came the part that's really scary, is just asking a potential supervisor or lab head, can I be your student or can I volunteer in your lab? That's really sort of the scary part, because they can say yes or they can say no. But one of the ways that I found helped me get over that is to just ask or tell people what you're interested in. Professors in your undergraduate, your teachers in high school, say, this really interests me. I like research, or I like this kind of research. Do you know anybody who's kind of looking to hire a volunteer or a student? That way it's not a yes or no dichotomy, and you always kind of find a place that is looking for somebody. And if it's that person that you wanted to join their lab, they can tell you straight up if it's available as a spot there. That's how I kind of got in.
Yeah, what Ashley's saying resonates quite a bit with me too. I think one of the important things to remember which is the hard thing in a lot of ways, you have to sort of figure out what you're passionate about and moving on and going from there. For me, I mean, it took me almost until I was in 4th year to figure out what it was that I was passionate about in biology. I mean, biology as a science is a really large discipline, which has many, many, many sub-disciplines underneath of it. And I mean, the same thing applies to medicine and to pharmacology, what I do now. But yeah, finding out what you're passionate about, that, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that you have to really start and get in your mind. and then reach out, do a little bit of research and try to find the people that work in those areas. You may not exactly end up doing what you thought you would be, but you'll do something close, and usually you'll find that it works out quite well in the end. I found Dr. Gibson at Acadia very serendipitously. I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do or what I was passionate about, but reaching out to somebody and getting that mentorship from them will really help a lot. And I'm so thankful that Glennis was able to do that for me.
Yeah, and it's not always clear what your passion is. Some people find it quite readily, and for me, I wasn't as passionate about being a physician as I liked medical research, and so I felt sort of a bit lost that I didn't feel that strong sense towards med school that everyone in my class felt. But if you just find things, maybe it's not the thing that makes you the happiest right away, but it's super cool. You just go that way. And then once you're done at that spot in research, you find something else that's really super cool. And you just kind of work your way. And then eventually that passion sort of starts to take shape for some people.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to being willing to take risks. It's the old cliche, it's a bit cliched, but it's literally taking a leap of faith in a great, in a big way to sort of get your feet in the door.
I actually think that another good thing to think about is that, a lot of people right now who say, they're passionate about the protein erythropoietin or the glucose 6-phosphate, that's not just something that they discovered they were passionate about because they looked at a piece of paper and pointed to a protein that was cool. A lot of the times you just start somewhere and then work your way through what's interesting. And I think I'm the biggest, I guess, supporter of that lab environment over topic. I think that's because when you're in a really supportive lab with a supervisor who you really resonate with, you can find and explore your topic within that lab. I thought, going into, I guess, a cardiac lab, that I would be very restricted to, this one thing that you had to do. But really, within our lab, there's people doing molecular biology things and different molecular techniques. There's people who are doing histology projects. There's people working on the uterus, even though it's a cardiac lab. And a lot of the time, supervisors are really open to being flexible with their research questions. So you can, within one lab, really get the opportunity to do different techniques. And that's why I think it's so important to find a lab that you feel comfortable in, because the passion and the interest will come if you're in a good space. And I think the reason that I highlight this so much is because I know people who have come to a lab where they didn't necessarily I guess relate as well to the people, and when you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to ask those difficult questions like, can I switch to looking at the uterus in this cardiac lab, so I don't think the question is to be worried about whether you're passionate about this right away or whether you found the right place. It's just feel out whether you found the right people. And if you feel good about it, then I say give it a shot. And like Kyle said, take a leap of faith. Okay, Ashley and Kyle, did you have any questions that maybe you thought would have been helpful having them addressed in your earlier path?
Kyle, you want to start with this?
It's interesting. I think I was, something that Ashley said that resonated a little bit with me earlier was the whole nervousness of approaching somebody. I don't think that university, at least in the first 3 years, taught me very much about networking and trying to reach out to somebody, it just happened that I got into it. Got my start into research because a colleague of a colleague suggested somebody and, sort of so forth. But when I was done my undergrad and then wanting to move into postgrad, into graduate school, it was really difficult in a lot of ways to put yourself out there to sort of reach out to people. And, I had like 3 no's before I got a yes. And, you know, so I guess it would have been helpful, I think, to have better known how to reach out to people and sort of how to communicate my passion into somebody else's lab environment and what you have to offer.
I think actually sorry, Ashley, did you want to?
Oh, sure. I was just going to answer my question, but go ahead, Irina.
Oh, I was just going to build on what Kyle said, so we'll go to your question in a second. Actually, my brother is finishing his grade 12th year as well. He goes to school in Ottawa, but something that I've learned from him is he's felt that there hasn't been a lot of support in learning how to actually send an email. And so you may resonate with that or not, and I hope you do, so that this isn't completely useless. But I think that's something to think about is, I guess I've been sending emails for what feels like decades now, but I guess there is this sort of email etiquette that kind of shows someone you're interested, but also respectful of their time. And so if I can put my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out to me if they're sending an email to someone and they need help. But I think, you know, to give you some tangible instructions with this, I think it's really important to have that general structure in email where you introduce yourself, say who you are, you know, what grade you're in, you know, first year, second year, so the professor can kind of know where you stand. And then I say the second thing that I would be interested in writing in an email is what you're interested in and why you're interested in this specific researcher. So I would look up, I'd say 2 papers. If you see that they're doing, you know, heart physiology or something like that, you can say, you know, I'm only starting university, but I'm really excited to learn about cardiac physiology and some of the markers. And I know that's something your lab does. I would love to talk more about this if you have any volunteer opportunities within your lab and research. And then I would keep it short, thank them for their time, and sign it with your name and whatever, who you are. And right in that first email, I would attach a resume or, you know, perhaps if you have your first semester grades, something that can be tangible to the professor right away. So they can kind of see, okay, well, this person has some lifeguarding experience. And you'd be surprised at how that immediately to the professor translates, okay, well, this person can make decisions on the spot and is good in a team. Or I was on the soccer team in high school. Okay, they know you're a team player, you know how to work with people. And so even, you know, within that one email, having those few things will already probably get you through the door better than someone just saying, hey, sup, you do research kind of thing, which I know sounds funny, but you'd be surprised that we actually get emails like that. So if this was helpful, hopefully that's something you can apply moving forward. And I'm actually glad to look over emails if that's something you're open to.
And I guess if I can add, don't underestimate selling yourself. You know, if you have, like, as Irina said, you know, if you are a lifeguard or, you know, whatever skill set you have, don't underestimate using it. You know, it's funny, as a little side anecdote, I was a cub and a scout and then became a beaver leader. Sometimes, honest to Pete, I think that having that experience has gotten me through the door into jobs and into things that I might not have otherwise. So if you've got something to offer that you can do, that you can show to them, as Irina said, you know, it might not necessarily be the overt skill that you think it is, but skills are skills and they're all valuable.
I think to Irina's original question about what questions I would have wished I had answered, I wish somebody had told me how I could be better prepared to enter research. Like I said, I entered it a bit late compared to my peers who had been volunteering with labs, research labs, for a couple of years by the time I joined. And so they already had papers that they had written with the supervisor, or which had been leveraged into getting funding so that they could get paid for their research. And I was a bit behind on that. So just, I wish somebody had sort of explained that, okay, if you volunteer early, you can get opportunities that support funding your position, and then you're no longer a volunteer, you're a paid employee, and then that gets you into a good master's or upgraded research position, and so on and so forth. And so it would have been nice to have a bit of an understanding of how that all worked a little bit earlier instead of a bit last minute.
I actually agree. I think that, you hear people saying, get a publication. And you're like, okay, I want one. And then that's kind of where you're left off with. And it kind of feels like this secret world that you don't know how to ask for one. Like, how do you get published? And do you ask for one? Do you wait? Does someone just put your name on something? And so that was kind of along the same lines, because I really wasn't sure what the normal thing was. And so, like Ashley said, I think a publication comes with being a significant contributor to a project. But in order to be a significant contributor to a project, you have to be involved within the lab first. And if you're in your second year, a professor is usually not going to give you this big project because they haven't seen how you work and how you're able to handle the different research responsibilities. And so I guess the easiest way to feel like you're working towards a publication, if that's something you're interested in, is to, I guess, establish a rapport within the lab so that the supervisor knows that they can trust you and you can perhaps take on bigger responsibilities. And then once you take on bigger responsibilities, then you're contributing to actual data collection and all those things that eventually go into a paper. And so with publications, I think, having the classic, you do some experiments, collect data, and you publish that finding or that exciting thing. That's a classic way to get a publication that most people think of. But there's also different kinds of publications you can be involved with, which I think that maybe undergraduate or high school students know a little bit less of, and that is you can do things like literature reviews. So with those things, you become, I guess, an expert within an area, and you learn all the papers that are out there currently, and you write kind of a summary paper. And in that sense, now people can see on one publication all the important knowledge that's out there on one topic, and that is published as well, and it's published in the exact same way that experimental data is published. And there's many more different kinds of things that are published, but just to keep an open mind that you don't always have to be involved in wet lab research to publish. And publishing isn't the end all be all, but I know that is a big topic in research.
Yeah, understanding the whole lab hierarchy, I guess, if you will, of how that starts. I mean, I was the same way as Ashley. I got involved quite late in the game, where a lot of the people that I had known got involved a lot earlier and were getting paid. By the time that I did my undergrad honors research, I didn't get paid for it. I did it because I wanted to do it, but some of the people that I knew got paid for it, and that would have helped quite a bit. So, just knowing that hierarchy of, when to get involved and sort of how to build up your experience along the way would be really helpful.
Actually, with that being said, while a lot of people start out in volunteer experiences, you actually can get paid for doing research. You're not just, giving away your time for free for the rest of your life. So some of those ways, volunteering is being involved in research. When you do like a fourth year project or a coursework research project, you don't get paid for that, unfortunately. But a lot of the times universities have summer research programs you can apply to. And, they also have programs where you can apply to do, part-time work during the year in research. You also get paid during your master's if you do a thesis project, and you get paid if you do a PhD. So, besides, I guess maybe the first year when you're volunteering, there are opportunities to get paid, and it is a real job, and you are, significantly contributing to the university. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it's not something that you have to just give away your time for free forever.
Awesome. I'm just looking at the time and we are already 10 minutes over. You guys have done a fabulous job. So thank you so much. I think that certainly we have not heard the end of these three. They are movers and shakers, and we're very blessed and happy that you joined us here at the Center of Excellence for Health. And I hope that the students have learned a little bit about research and making sure that they're not afraid to take a chance and leap in with both feet, and maybe even if it's not exactly what you want to do at that moment, hopefully that journey will help you throughout the whole process of getting to where you want to be with research. I know that I've learned a lot from these folks, and we were on a call earlier in the week, and their passion and excitement around research is inspirational and exciting for me to to hear, because you know, that work's going into our community here in New Brunswick. So thank you so much. Thank you to IMPART, and certainly if you have any questions or you want to reach out, you can certainly reach out to myself here at the Center of Excellence. I'll put my email in the chat, but also the IMPART Twitter is there, and the New Brunswick Center of Excellence Twitter is there. So like Irina said, tweeting is probably the way to go if you want to get involved in science and just kind of be in the backgrounds for a bit and then take a chance and put a comment out there, or tweet somebody back, and you never know what's going to happen. So I guess the you know, the purpose of today was to open up that conversation around research and what it looks like for young people, but also to get people very excited about the opportunities that are here in the province, and knowing that you have a lot of people just right now to reach out to if you have questions. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. And I'm going to stop the recording, and certainly I'll stay on if anybody wants to ask questions or have any comments for the guests.